Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Fighter's Block. I'm your host, Jesse Rivas, being joined with my partner in crime. I'm going to say it for a second week in a row, my oos, Joe Gilpin.
Oos, what's going on, Jesse? How you doing?
Chilling, man. I'm excited because we're officially at the beginning of the fight season. This is the first major UFC card, and we have some phenomenal boxing on DAZN this week. And we got a bunch of bullshit fights at the bottom that they're still interesting, especially for a snow day. I'm excited. How are you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling good. Snow day going on outside. We got a couple decent fights at least this weekend, one or two. I'm kind of up and down on some of these cards, and there's been some COVID cancellations, which sucks. But
that's the worst.
There's gonna be some fun stuff.
No, it's been terrible. But you know what? Before we dive in, do you want to break down the week that was? The last appetizer before the beginning of fight season, which was Alistair Overeem versus Alexander Volkov.
My boy, Papa's boy, Alistair, probably going to go down as the best heavyweight to date to never win the title in the UFC. And, man, never got going, looked old, broke his nose, and it really looked like the end of the line. It looked like, man, it's just all the adjustments have been adjusted. But these cats are just too good and too young. Volkov's amazing. Volkov's world class. And he jumps himself into the top 5 of that division, and he looks like a guy who can make a lot of noise. What do you think?
I mean, we're looking at Alistair Overeem. This is a fighter who turned pro as an MMA fighter back in 1999. This guy has a lot of mileage. He was a phenomenal kickboxer, world Grand Prix champion in K1, which was the highest prestige a kickboxer could receive. Multiple world championships all over the MMA world, but he could never grasp the UFC title. It's the one thing that always eluded him. And at 40 years old, we saw one last run, and we kept hoping that possibly this might be it. But after losing this past fight, it doesn't look like it's going to get any better for him. And the guys are just getting younger, and they're getting better. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
MMA doesn't wait around, baby. MMA keeps on moving. There will be another class of contenders all the time. If you don't believe it, ask Frankie Edgar, right? Another guy, same night.
Another heartbreak. Oh, my God.
Jay, did you just freeze on me?
Like, I almost
Are you freezing on me? I saw you go, oh, and then you froze on me for a second. What are you saying?
Oh, okay. I said I almost heard Boyz II Men singing one of those sad goodbye songs. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday.
It is hard to say goodbye to yesterday. It is hard. Frankie got starched. Corey Sandhagen stole the show. I actually am almost, in retrospect, wondering why this wasn't the main event, considering Frankie's as much of a draw as Alistair, I would assume, at least. Maybe, it's kind of like a heavyweight littler guy thing, but even still, Frankie's a huge name, and Corey Sandhagen is top 3 in that division. That's a guy that they should be pushing. And after that flying knee, Corey's developing a Mr. Violence thing going on now. You know what I mean? He's always been tricky and sticky and doing all this cool shit, this Bruce Lee shit. But now, man, Marlon Moraes spinning back kick knocks him the fuck out. Now Frankie Edgar flies through the air, 30-second knockout with the knee. Unbelievable.
Interesting, though, ever since he lost to Aljamain Sterling, we've seen a way better Sandhagen. Like, he just looks phenomenal. He's actually making a good claim to be next in line, whether it's Aljamain or not. I'm interested to see this new Sandhagen in a rematch.
I still feel like he's got one more before the Aljo fight is really past him. Because with Marlon, everybody's knocking out Marlon. And with Frankie, you can point to it and say, okay, Frankie's 40, and that, he got choked out in a minute and a half. Now, maybe that's a fluke. You lose one bad position in a grappling exchange, and then things just snowball from there. Trust me, I know. It very well might have been one of those kinds of things. I still feel like there's a little bit left for him to go. I heard this week him saying, like, oh, I'll never fight, I don't want to fight TJ Dillashaw. No, fight TJ Dillashaw. Beat his ass. Take a title shot.
Yeah.
Fuck him up, dog. I still want to see one more.
No, I became a fan. Did Frankie officially retire, and did Alistair officially retire, or is that just us saying like they're done? We're never going to see you at a high level again.
That's a lot more of us just saying like,
Please
you know,
stop.
when it comes to getting a path to the title, that's gone. Frankie's never going to fight for a world title again. And if he won this fight, I think they were going to give it to him. I really do. But he wasn't able to get it. Man, MMA and pornography, two sports that really favor the young. Sports. You get what I'm saying? Or why not?
They're athletes. It could be a sport.
They're athletes. They get fucking knee problems at 30, just like anybody else. It sucks, man. It sucks to be in love with these guys because MMA does not give you the chance to have that feel good last gasp. You know what I mean? That guy coming out of retirement and making it all happen. Very rarely do you get to see one of those. And it's really special when we do see it, but we didn't see it. We went 0 for 2 Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare. I mean, if you think of it's very few people that in their 40s actually has like a good run. Like we're thinking of like Randy Couture, but that's a guy who didn't start till he was 35. Yeah, 40 is tough. 40 is a very tough time period to be an MMA fighter.
Especially with the testing they have now. And that's not like with the drug testing they have now, it's even harder. I'm not, throwing shade at anybody who was in that generation beforehand. But man, there was plenty of guys getting away with those. You remember the TRT era? Suddenly all these 50-year-olds who look like 20-year-olds again. Yeah. All that shit's gone, right? And so now they got to struggle through that. And it sucks. It sucks to do it drug-free.
One guy who's almost 40, he's about a year away from 40, looked impressive in the fight right before the Frankie versus Sandhagen fight. And that is Clay Guida. Actually looked fantastic in his fight against Michael Johnson at 39 years old, still being able to hold it down, even though it wasn't against a young person, though. It was someone from his generation, but he looked fantastic. How'd you see this fight?
That's about what I saw. And then he started calling out somebody from the next generation. He says, I want to fight a contender. I want to fight an up-and-comer. And I think that's a great idea. I think there's plenty of killers at 155 who I want to see them make a name off Clay Guida. I think Guida's going to have a tough chance against any real up-and-comer. There was a time when he was that ultimate spoiler. I don't know if he's that anymore. He could be. He's still obviously able to put rounds together and win fights. But he still has enough liabilities. Man. Hit me.
He's tough. I mean, even when he's losing, he's making you work. So he's exhausting you. So he's a tough out for anyone. Absolutely.
But he's almost like that dumb tough. You know what I mean? Like I heard Teddy Atlas has talked about this a few times that I've heard, and it's a good point. There's a kind of toughness where you're just trying to prove that you can last until the end of the fight. And you can take a million punches and there's nothing they can do to you, right? Versus the kind of toughness that says, this sucks. How do I adjust to win? And there's a very fine line between those two. And I don't know quite. So, sometimes I feel like Clay is just like, no, it's almost like a Diego Sanchez thing. And they had a great fight because of it. March forward, take the damage. They can't do anything to you. Your mentality is too strong. It's like, no. Jab. Try jabbing first. How about that? How about a jab? But he looked great. Michael Johnson, probably, his last UFC fight, goes 2-2 against like the guys who are all in the top 5 right now. But then, you fight a guy who's unranked and he can't win a round. It sucks.
He looked phenomenal against Gaethje. He looked phenomenal against Khabib. And then he has trouble with like
Thiago Moises and shit. Yeah. He gets tapped by Thiago Moises easier than he gets tapped against Khabib. I know there are different points of their career and all that, but still, Michael Johnson is just for as many tools and as many positives as he'll always have, there's liabilities. And he ended up losing this one. He's been in the UFC forever, though. They love him there. I feel like it might be his last fight, though.
Really?
He's on like an 8-fight losing streak.
Yeah, but he's always there to test the new guy or like to make a name off the new guy.
They don't want that. They want names to be names. Why do they? No, and it's not even like you could say a win over Michael Johnson really catapults you to that next level. It doesn't really. Can you name me a couple of guys who have beaten Michael Johnson in the last few years? It's happened, but you don't know who.
And that's a good point. That's a good point. A Michael Johnson win doesn't mean what it used to. Two guys actually who are from the new generation right now who a win over either one who need a signature win like a Mike, well, not even a Michael Johnson, but they needed a big win in this card, which is Pantoja versus Cop. This was a fight that we were both anticipating. We saw the records. We heard all the stuff about Cop, about him being a future world champion, about him being a huge person in this weight class. And he was, but he just could not pass the Pantoja test this time. But we saw a lot of great adjustments in the other as the rounds went on. We can definitely see this guy being a contender down the line. But it was all Pantoja in this fight. How did you see it?
I think that gets to the heart of the matter is that Cop was good but very raw. I felt like, and he made some strategic errors that I thought really fucked with him. And Pantoja was just able to put together rounds in a way that Cop wasn't. Cop was just giving away rounds, right? He was leaving that back door open. Even all the good work he would do, he would kind of sit back and admire it, or he would start taunting a little bit too much. He was scoring nice takedowns, which I feel like he thought was winning him rounds, and maybe that's why he didn't have the urgency, is because he was getting those last like 10-second takedowns. Refs don't really give a shit about that here anymore. You know what I mean? That's not nearly a big deal like it used to be for many judges. And so I feel like he ultimately has to look back at that and say, like, fuck, I didn't get beat. I lost. That was on me. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. He seemed real upset afterwards, but Cop definitely looks like a tough guy in the division.
The way I viewed it is, you've wrestled before. You played collegiate sports, so it seemed like a very good high school athlete goes to college and is like, wow, this is the next level. And I felt that's what happened to Mano Cop in this fight. He felt he had never experienced anyone at the level of Pantoja before in a real fight. Maybe in sparring, maybe in the gym, but nothing ever when someone's actually trying to take your head off. And in the first round, I think he got shocked by how good Pantoja is and how good this UFC level is.
Maybe that's not how I saw it, actually. I didn't think he was struggling with physicality. I didn't think he was struggling with technique. He's beaten some really good guys. He was the Rising champ after all. This is a very serious motherfucker here. I think it was more, I don't think he was shocked by the level, and I think he would want back in there with Pantoja. I think it was more just not used to the scoring maybe, or, just like it's a little tough to put my finger on exactly what the problem was. It looked like a raw fighter who didn't quite understand what he needed to do to win the fight. He had the tools to win the fight, but he didn't use the tools, right? So you may as well not even have them if you're not going to use them. And I would love to know what his corner, I haven't gone back and watched the fight since I saw it. I actually saw it twice, but because I watched it once by myself and then I watched it with you the next day. But I would love to hear what his corner's telling him in between rounds, and then like cage side as well. Are they telling him, hey man, you got to pick it up, you got to do this, you got to do that? Or are they kind of giving him that like, hey, everything's cool, you're doing exactly what we planned, don't worry, keep going? I want to know what advice he was getting too.
We actually, that was a great fight, but it also got overshadowed because it followed Beneil Dariush's victory over Carlos Diego Ferreira.
I love both these dudes, and I love this fight. This is a great fucking fight. This is one of the best grappling fights I've seen in quite a while, to be honest, with some of these exchanges that we're going back and forth. The judging ended up fucking with me. They gave split decision to Dariush, which is correct that it goes to Dariush. But I was, one of those judges saw that fight for Ferreira. I was closer to 30-27 Dariush than I was giving the fight to Diego Ferreira. What do you think about that?
No, I thought Dariush was definitely the winner of this fight. I thought that he did enough to win. It didn't make sense to me either, the scoring. I know this is a fight that Ferreira really wanted, specifically because that's one of his losses on his record, and he had this loss very early on in his career. But, man, it just seems like Beneil Dariush has his number 10 times out of 10. He's probably going to beat him. But, man, it was a good fight.
It was a great fight. It was. Ferreira has really like sneaky effective striking.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he trains out of King's MMA, and he's a very skilled jiu-jitsu grappler, jiu-jitsu black belt. His cage wrestling has improved a lot. His striking looks ugly from the outside. but he's tagging really good guys and he's creating these exchanges that end up opening things up for him. So maybe like a really crisp counter striker might be his nightmare. But for now, he's rocket at 155 pounds, one of the toughest divisions in the world. And he's looking like a guy who's looking for a fight, which is a great thing to be in the UFC.
Well, let's go back to the winner. Where does Beneil Dariush go from here? That's a pretty impressive victory.
It's a super impressive victory. I forget off the top of my head if this next guy has a fight coming up, but I'd like to see Dariush take the RDA test. Yes, I'd like to see him take on Rafael dos Anjos, little older statesman, veteran, down at 155 to kind of make his last run. And I think there's a lot of similarities there. Two grapplers who started off as grapplers who've developed. Oh wait, no shit, they're both Kings MMA. Now that I fucking say it, so they won't fight. They won't fight.
This next upcoming card is two former teammates, so they can't fight each other because they're both Kings.
I mean, I'm assuming, right? I'm assuming here. It kind of shakes out with whoever is going to have this title picture, right? Maybe Tony Ferguson's the fight if it's not going to be RDA. It could be a Tony Ferguson. Because Ferguson's on that decline, he needs to take somebody lower ranked than him. He's not going to get somebody ranked above him. He's like 6th right now. So he's looking a little bit lower. You're looking at Michael Chandler's in there. You're looking at Dan Hooker's in there. Neither of those is quite right in the moment. Dariush is the right fight for Tony Ferguson. And it's the right fight for Dariush. You get a tough guy who you can make a name off of. And if you beat Tony Ferguson, the win streak he's on, man, he's going to go right up that ladder. He'll fucking fight Poirier next after that.
Yeah. No, that's
you know
a good
what
route.
Would be a great fight if he couldn't end up making that happen is him and Oliveira.
I think Oliveira needs a title shot. Am I just an Oliveira fan? But I think he should fight no one but the champion next.
I agree. And Gaethje was on Twitter, like he posted Charles Oliveira's like record, and he was like, "Oh, besides Tony Ferguson, who did this guy beat to get a title shot?" I was like, "The same guy you beat to get a title shot, Tony Ferguson. What are you talking about?" And
I would like to see them that fight, actually. I'll take it back. I would like to see that for like the lightweight BMF title.
That would be badass. They're all BMFs. They're all BMFs. Was Justin Gaethje versus Poirier not a BMF fight? We've had these a million. We've had these violent motherfuckers in there. I could just name all of Dustin Poirier's fights because he's the BMF champ at 155. He's taken all the BMFs. He's beat their asses, stopped them, knocked them out. He's the bad motherfucker on the block. But Dariush making his way up, doing it the right way. I love the post fight where he hits up, he bigs up his boy. That's true. That's true dudes rock energy. And I support that. I support nothing but that. And it's a good way to make some fans. I'm not saying it was done for that reason, but it is a good way to do it, is to be, a selfless cage fighter. It was almost, I'm going to go too far here. It was almost like Stone Cold Steve Austin calling out Vince McMahon. Because he was calling out the UFC and saying, like, you guys are fucking us over. Yeah. We're the hardworking boys in the back, and you're not getting it done for us. You're fucking over us.
Dariush fight against Paul Felder.
That could be it. Is Felder retired?
I don't know, but they both kind of like have very similar tracks. They both came in with like a lot of high-bis prospects. They both kind of went into like that undercard kind of level, that mid card where they didn't really get title shots, but they weren't also like complete jobbers. They weren't gatekeepers, kind of contenders. And now they're both having like these like great performances kind of late in their career. I think it'd be a fantastic fight.
I don't know that I agree that Dariush was late in his career, but we shall see, my friend. We shall see. Great.
Well, he's over 30 having his rise as opposed to when he was in his 20s. So, I mean, I don't think it's like late in his career, but it's not like we've seen him for a while in the UFCs.
He's a veteran, certainly.
Yeah, he's a veteran. Yeah.
He's a veteran. No doubt. No doubt.
Man, so news and notes. We had a tragic loss of former heavyweight world champion, and former gold medalist Leon Spinks.
Man, one of the biggest upsets of all time that people don't talk about is when he beat Ali for the title in his 6th, 7th, single digits. He had single-digit pro fights, and he beat Muhammad Ali for the World Heavyweight Championship. I mean, wrap your head around that. I hate to boil somebody's career down to one fight, especially when you're, kind of remembering them as they pass. But holy fuck, he beat Muhammad Ali. He had single-digit pro bouts, Jesse. That's unbelievable. You can't even put your head around that. And Leon, his career went up, his career went down. He had some nice moments on the back end for sure, but that's the moment that goes in bronze, right? That's the headline. Leon Spinks, great champion.
100%. I mean, he was a small heavyweight. He did an incredible feat. His brother became world champion afterwards. But no, after the Muhammad Ali loss, his career was never really the same again. But I mean, that still doesn't take away how great and how important he was in like the time period that he fought against Ali, that 2-fight streak. And he didn't have the most celebrated victory because he upset a hero. He upset a transcendent fighter that was more than just boxing. I've had this debate with people when I'm like, well, Floyd Mayweather is clearly the greatest boxer of all time. And then they say, well, define what you mean by great, because he may have the best record, he may be undefeated, but Muhammad Ali stood for more than just the world title and just that. He was the people's champ. He stood for a change in culture at that time period. So that's why he always will get more love than like a Mayweather or a Mike Tyson type figure.
Although at the time he was hated outside of the black community. Outside of and even within the black community, there's pockets that hated him a whole bunch. But it's well documented that Muhammad Ali was for real. There's a lot of, I don't want to have to redo a Chris Rock bit here. He ended up being I kind of lost my train of thought when I mentioned Chris Rock because now I'm just running through Chris Rock jokes in my head. Muhammad Ali ended up being, this giant cultural icon that was transcending that. And then when he's really hitting, when he's, white Omega hot, here comes Leon Spinks. And Leon Spinks is able to grab that from him. And it's truly one of the most stunning moments in heavyweight boxing history. Leon Spinks, rest in peace. Neon Leon, no longer with us.
Here's an interesting fact. Joe Rogan got into fight sports on the rematch between Leon Spinks and Muhammad Ali. Because it was so big that his parents, who were hippies, who weren't even boxing fans, were watching this boxing fight. And that's the fight that got him hooked to like boxing and like all this stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah. So you never know who you're going to reach out to. Great fight announcement. UFC just announced Jerry Prochazka versus Dominic Reyes on May 1st. Bam! I don't know about you, but I'm super excited about this fight.
This is a rescheduling, correct?
I believe it is a rescheduling, yes.
Yeah, they were scheduled to fight, and then somebody got hurt, something got moved, and it ended up on this. But this is their way of kind of fast-tracking Prochazka to this fucking title shot, because that's where a lot of people, ourselves included, if we're going to, that's where we think he's going. And, man, Dominic is coming off of that stinging loss to Jan, and he needs a big performance. This is one of the most meaningful fights in the light heavyweight division this year. Straight up.
100%. Jerry Prochazka, the dream champion, a guy who we've seen since he was a prospect, since he first came to Japan, and now he's in the U.S. He got what I consider the European championship. They put him up against what's my man's name? The bald-headed guy.
Ozdemir?
Ozdemir. Yeah, Volkan Ozdemir. He is like, if not him or Gustafsson, is the best European light heavyweight in the world. And Prochazka just destroyed him, just dominated him. So now they're going to put him up against the guy who just challenged for the title, a guy who's just an eliminator, Dominic Reyes. A victory over Reyes definitely streamlines him to the title shot. I would be super excited to see Prochazka versus Stylebender. I think that would be an awesome fight.
That's a great fight. That's a great fight. Or even him versus Jan, because I'm not one of these guys who's automatically putting Adesanya over Jan Blachowicz. I know there's a lot of people doing that. I'm not on that train. But Prochazka versus Adesanya, please. I will watch that fight with an extra set of pants because mine will be too filled with jizz.
No, that's, man, I
will be topping my pants off regularly throughout that fight. I will be creaming these jeans, sir.
As much as I like Jan, and as much as I respect everything he did and how big of a star he was in Poland and how he came to the U.S. and won the title, it's still a title with quotation marks because the general public considers John Jones the world champion. And if
general public can consider whatever the fuck they want. The general public is wrong. He's the world champion. He's the best. John is never going to weigh 205 in his life again. John Jones is never going to weigh 205 in his life again. It's done. And so he's out. He's out of the division. You know what I mean? The division is moving on, and Jan is a part of that.
But a victory over Stylebender.
John Jones beat Jan? Did you ever see John Jones beat Jan?
No.
No. So why can't we say he's the champion? John didn't beat him. He's the man. He's got the belt.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But if you ask a general person, they'll probably be like, yeah, he never really beat a world champion. But if he beats Stylebender, even though Stylebender's the champion of the division below, I think he would get that respect on his name. For
sure, his stock will rise through the roof if he beats Adesanya. But Adesanya is like the number 2 pound for pound guy. That's true, regardless of if John Jones is there or not. I think that let's get back to Prajaka and Dom for a second. Bring them back to the table. You look at what Jan did to Dom compared to what John Jones did to Dom. I think that made a big statement to people. So I think Jan is definitely set up to be well taken care of in this fight. I feel like there's an incredible amount of disrespect being paid to UFC champions lately. There's an incredible amount of disrespect just across the board. How many motherfuckers keep talking about how Volkanovski shouldn't be the champion? It should be Holloway. People talk about Usman, give him no respect. One of the greatest 170s of all time. He gets no respect. Yeah. He gets no respect. Man, just up and down, these guys are getting no fucking respect.
Petr Yan.
Some are. Jan, which we just brought up. Even Stipe. Look at what Stipe had to accomplish before people considered him the world champ. So if you tell me the general public doesn't consider him XYZ, the general public is full of idiots.
I personally just mentioned Aljamain Sterling like he's the champ. I've already assumed he beat Jan.
Exactly, man. We're not even talking about Petr Yan, who I know he's beaten up a couple of 40-year-olds on his way to the title, but beat fucking Jose Aldo. He's undefeated in the UFC. These are incredible accomplishments and incredible fighters that people just don't think about and don't, they overlook entirely.
Wait, is Jose even 30 yet?
Oh, fair enough. But
because I think he got the title at like 19. Like we feel like we've seen him.
He's like porn. He's like when they put like a 30-year-old in the MILF category in porn. You know what I mean? Like, okay, he's just got road miles. I don't know what to tell you. He's got road miles.
You just watch porn because you've had a lot of porn like analogies.
No, I'm trying to crack jokes, Jesse. I'm trying to keep it light and loose. I can make drugs jokes. Let's make some drugs jokes. I'm gonna fucking pack a bowl while we do this instead then.
Yeah, that gets me. One day I was watching way too much Mia Khalifa, and I went to an open mic, and I just had Mia Khalifa jokes afterwards, and half the audience. Happy birthday, Mia Khalifa.
It's weird that I know that. I am sounding very porny right now, like I'm one of those convention guys. But I do happen. Somebody retweeted this into my timeline. It's the only reason I know.
She's from Montgomery County. I mean, shouting out. I support local talent. Local artists. Mia Khalifa, Wale, local talent across the board.
Love it. Love everything about it.
Speaking of the light heavyweight division, we have an amazing tournament at Bellator. They just announced the first round of a $1 million tournament. This is the biggest promotion outside of the UFC, and this is a star-studded light heavyweight tournament. So round one, we have Ryan Bader versus Lyoto Machida in the first round.
Rematch.
Yeah, we have Corey Anderson versus a guy I've never heard of, actually. His name, I'm probably
Russian guy with a crazy name. Yeah, I don't know that much about him either. He's the mystery guy.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Man, I couldn't even tell you. Yeah, but Corey Anderson, I think he's favored. He is favored to win that fight. And Corey Anderson has a nice little path to the finals, by the way. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a trap first fight, but I think if he gets past that, I actually kind of like his chances against Bader or Machida.
Really? Okay.
Is that a hot take? I feel like Corey Anderson could be in the finals here.
Well, you did say he has a trap first fight. So what do you know about this?
No, I don't know anything. That's the problem. Okay. That's the problem is that, like, who the fuck knows who this guy is and how good he could be? Maybe this guy is like a Daniel Cormier where the tournament just makes him this giant star or something, right? And nobody knows who the fuck he is.
That's why I think he might be good, because if you see everyone else in the tournament, everyone's a beast. And then you have this mystery dude, which is like, whoa, Why'd they put him in?
No, it's scary, man. It's fucking. You want to know who this guy is. I would much rather face Bader or Machida first round than this young guy who's hungry, who's unknown, who has tape on you. That's why I call it a trap fight. There's a little bit of trap there. Corey has the big name. He should win the fight. He's probably going to go in as the betting favorite. I could be wrong about that. But we're going to find out the guy's like 15-0 in Bellator or something. You know what I mean? But man, some serious stuff. What else is happening first round? I'm listening while you talk. By the way, I'm just grabbing
champion Vadim Nemkov goes against Phil Davis, Mr. Wonderful, the former champion.
I love it. I love it. Phil Davis, one of my favorite college wrestlers of all time. I am super amped to see how well he can do in this tournament. Who's he facing first round?
He fights against Vadim Nemkov.
Oh, but there's a big problem. He drew the rough straw. He drew the champion who is probably the favorite to win the whole tournament. Having said that, Nemkov, not to say he has a wrestling weakness, but it's not his game. And so there is a path to victory for Phil Davis. There's also a path to getting kicked in the head and knocked out. So I hope that doesn't. There really is, but it's fighting. It's cage fighting. So let's see what happens. But Phil could win that. That's a real fight. And then, baby, we got something big coming up for this last one.
Big one. Anthony Rumble Johnson versus Yoel Romero. What? If your mind didn't just explode, then you have no adrenaline. You have no feelings in you. This is an amazing fight. These are two of the best physical specimens to ever step into MMA. We have Anthony Rumble Johnson with some of the best knockouts in MMA history versus Yoel Romero, who's in his 40s but can still do a backflip after 5 rounds of fighting. The guy's an amazing wrestler, an amazing fighter, but he is moving up in weight for this fight. So he will be the small guy in this, technically the small guy in this tournament. How do you see his chances in this tournament?
Well, it was supposed to be Mousasi, and I think the Russian cat we don't know was originally Mousasi, but Mousasi was like, yeah, I don't know if I actually agreed to this. So like an hour after they put out the bracket, he was like, and Scott Coker pulled him and replaced him, which is very funny. Man, this is Cuban Captain America, Captain Cuban, versus maybe the hardest hitter in the history of MMA in Anthony Rumble Johnson. This is an incredible matchup of, like you said, specimens, and you know something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. You don't know. I have no idea what it is, but I know it's going to be something, and it's going to be fucking weird, right? I can't wait. That's going to be a hell of a fight. You know these are all 5 rounds, right?
Yeah, because since the champion is fighting 5 rounds, everyone else has to fight 5 rounds. Exactly.
Wouldn't be fair for Corey Anderson, for example, to go 3-round decision into the finals, and fucking Nemkov's 25-minute war. It doesn't work like that. So everybody's going to fight 25-minute fights, and Nemkov puts his belt up every fight. Every fight that the champion is in, the belt is on the line. These tournaments are great.
Yeah, I think it's phenomenal.
I love it. Some of the tournaments have not paid off as well. For example, the welterweight one, I would say, didn't quite pan out. But that heavyweight Strikeforce tournament that Scott Coker ran is still one of the greatest heavyweight tournaments, one of the greatest MMA tournaments of all time. I think back on it very fondly. And it made Daniel Cormier, who has an argument. Daniel Cormier is, I won't even put an argument. Daniel Cormier is a top 20 all-time MMA fighter. And that's the tournament that put him on the map. I was going to say arguably top 10, and I do believe that. But I don't think you can argue that he's top 20.
Yeah.
Even if you have him outside the top 10, you have him just outside looking in. And man, we could see Nemkov get established here as, a top global guy. We could see fucking Rumble, the return of Rumble. Is he focused? Where's he at? Is his, what's his game looking like? Maybe Yoel Romero comes out, starches everybody. Maybe Corey Anderson was right to leave the UFC. Maybe he was right to come in and say, I'm going to bet on myself by going somewhere else where they're going to treat me like championship caliber material. Well, he's got it. He wanted to control his destiny. It's directly in front of you. 3 wins. Someone in this tournament will put together 3 wins and establish themselves as one of the baddest motherfucking 205s on the planet. And I'm amped for it.
Early pick. Let's do that. Let's bet something. I don't know. Like I'll bet you a 12-pack of White Claw and a pizza.
But we can't pick Nemkov because he's the favorite.
Okay, can't pick Nemkov. Can't pick Nemkov. Who else can't we not?
That's like free space.
Yeah.
That's like free space. Fuck. Anderson.
Corey Anderson?
I feel like I'm not putting enough respect on Bader's name, but I'm going to pick Corey Anderson if I can't pick Nemkov. Upset pick. I understand that's not the favorite, but fuck it. I'm going to let it ride.
So you got Corey Anderson?
That's what I said.
All right. I will pick. I got to go Crazy Russian. I don't know anything about him. I'm kind of excited.
Ooh, so one of us is going to be right in the very first round.
He's like a new toy. Like, it's like, ooh, like this guy hasn't lost since 2015, and he's been on this crazy win streak. He was young when he lost. He made a lot of mistakes, like a lot of us do. But anyway,
it's like when you see a new guy in like WWE or something. It's like, oh, what's his finisher going to be? What's his fucking catchphrase going to be? You get to learn all this shit about him. And it ends up being a great thing. I wasn't kidding about the weed stuff. That's where I went for a second.
Yeah. I was about to go Rumble Johnson, but man, you know what? God,
can you pick Rumble to be focused 3 fights in a row, though?
That's the thing. When he's great. But man, focus is a big issue with him. Like, can he stay the course? Do you remember when he decided to come out and wrestle Daniel Cormier in his title fight? And because he fought him twice. He had the one where he knocked him down, and that was what it was. But the second one, he comes out and he starts trying to wrestle the motherfucker. And Daniel's like laughing in the cage, like, I know he didn't just do this. I know the guy who gasses out didn't just come out and decide to do shit to gas himself out and lose the only way that he had to win the fight. Man, now, is he going to have one of those performances is the question. Man, I'm excited.
No love for Yoel? No love for Yoel? Look at that body. That body can't handle 205?
But Rumble Johnson has been a heavyweight. He's been a heavyweight.
Really good heavyweights. He beat Arlovsky a decade ago. Think about this.
And Yoel was a welterweight.
And he used to be a welterweight. He fought Rich Clemente and Andre Arlovsky. It's insane. Is this going to be potentially a positive for Yoel Romero moving up in weight this late into his career?
2 weight classes.
2 weight classes?
Yeah, because wasn't he was welterweight, he skipped middleweight, and he's going to light heavyweight.
Romero was a middleweight.
No, you're right.
Romero was a one. Yeah, what are you talking about? I thought you meant Rumble Johnson for a second. Get it together.
Rumble Johnson was a welterweight. Yeah. But
that's what I meant. Yeah.
I thought at some point Yoel fought at but I was wrong. Never mind. He was a middleweight.
No, Yoel. He ain't making 170 unless
I lumped them together with Hector Lombard. That's what I did in my head. I made them one person, and I was like, wait, they're 2 different people. Quick,
speak some Spanish so that we can't get canceled. But remind them that your last name is Rivas.
Oh, man. This week, we actually have some great fights. I'm just going to change the subject now.
Because I'm over here busy fucking weed. You're being problematic. You're doing a no growth. You're doing a Gina Carano right now.
What did Gina Carano say?
Oh, who fucking knows? She put some fucking photo online and lost her Disney job.
Really? Was
Did
it
you
like?
Not hear about this? Yeah, it's been a big thing the last 2 days. I don't even really want to talk about it because who fucking gives a shit?
I can't give a fuck. Gina Carano, she's a pioneer. Like, I mean, she.
Oh yeah. Straight up, and it was like.
MMA.
It was like the 14th anniversary of her fight with Julie Kedzie, which is actually a really underappreciated fight in MMA history generally. Like, that was the fight that put women on the map. Was Julie Kedzie versus Gina Carano on Strikeforce, as put on by Scott Coker. I think Scott Coker. And she's turned into just some fucking like repost and all this like conservative shit. And she put up something about how like, oh, cancel culture is like being a Jew during the Holocaust. And Disney was like, yeah, you cannot be saying that for sure.
Okay, that was extreme.
It's like, yeah, your coworker is like Big Bird and shit. Don't talk about the Holocaust. Don't even. You don't have an opinion beyond like, damn, that was fucked up. That's your opinion. That's free PR advice for anybody out there who wants to work for Disney. If your coworker is a small puppet, don't talk about the Holocaust.
Maybe she
Is that fair? Is that fair? I feel like that's fair.
Maybe she thought Walt Disney was still running the company.
Literally, she's like, man, Walt told me. He said it was okay. I don't know. I saw this movie Song of the South you guys put out. That seemed pretty great. No, I don't know. So yeah, fucking Gina.
Yeah. Man, this weekend we have some great fights. We have the return of Richard Comey. He's coming back after losing his title to Teofimo Lopez, who's become a huge star since then, against another guy who's coming off of a loss, Dominican prospect Jackson Martinez. He's also coming back from a loss. So this is going to be who's gonna recuperate from an upset loss here. It's going to be a pretty good match. We also have Josh Warrington returning. It's his first fight, and man, it's been over a year against Mauricio Lara, who's a 22-year-old prospect from Mexico. What was that?
That sucks for Warrington because I feel like he was building momentum really well before everything got shut down, 100%. And then he just got put on the shelf.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this should be an easy fight for Warrington. He's got the experience. He's got the pedigree. Mauricio Lara, this is one of the things that happens with a lot of Mexican prospects sometimes. If you get that shot, they just throw you to the wolves and see what happens. So hopefully this isn't like a kid who has a lot of possibilities and this is a little bit too soon and he may not be the same after this fight. Or he could be showing off and just skyrocketing to the next level. This could be like a Salvador Sanchez type moment or a Tito Trinidad or a Fernando Vargas where, yeah, you're 22, but this was the opportunity you needed to take you to the next level. I don't think that's going to be the case, but man, let's watch it.
Let's watch it. The fight's on. So let's see. And it makes sense. He took a really vicious KO against Teofimo. One where he can kind of right his ship a little bit. If you're his management, that's smart management. Yeah.
And then we have, this is a fight that, I got mixed feelings of. Rakhimov is Rakhimov.
Yeah. You gotta remember they're all Muslim. That colors everything. So K's and H's just don't even get said. Rakhimov.
Yeah. He's up and coming fighter. Decent record, 15-0, nothing too threatening. Is going against one of the badasses in division, the world champion JoJo Diaz, who's coming off his win against Tevin Farmer. I don't know if I like this as the main event of this card. How do you see this fight?
So this is two guys who are very used to moving forward as they fight, especially Rakhimov is very much a physical bull. So I'm interested to see what JoJo Diaz's game plan coming into this is. Because I feel like when he fought Farmer, him and Farmer kind of clashed in the middle and just figured it out there, right? Is he going to do that again, or is he going to look back at that tape and say, this maybe wasn't the smartest idea all the time? Should I try to counterpunch and work from the outside a little bit more and matador this guy? Because he will bull. He's going to bull all night. Yeah. And that's going to be really interesting to find out. Rakhimov is tough. Rakhimov is a motherfucker. He can win this fight.
Like the guy was good at his level. Where is he from? Like Turkestan or it's from one of the stands, Tajikistan. Yeah, so he was like the man in the amateurs there, but he wasn't like an amateur gold medalist or a world champion. That in his 15th fight he's going to be put in there against JoJo Diaz. I think he maybe needed a little bit more grooming before this fight.
But Russians don't do that. Russians straight up don't do that. You know what I mean? How many Russians do we see with a fucking 12-0 record getting a WBC title shot or some shit? You know what I mean?
That is true. That is true.
All the time. And I don't know if he will have the power to make that work. But this fight is not as one-sided as you might be thinking. This is a 60-40, 65-35. 65-35. 2-1. I think it's fair to say. But there's a real world where Rakhimov gets inside, pushes Diaz back and upsets his rhythm that way. Because if he tries to fight him the same way he fought Farmer, I think that could be a big fucking problem. Maybe it's not, but I think it's an interesting question.
You know where I was really impressed by JoJo Diaz was in his only loss. I think that was his best performance when he fought against Gary Russell Jr. in DC.
It was a good performance. It was not a bad loss. He's one of the top guys. Don't know how good Gary Russell Jr. is. You know what I mean? He's undervalued. He's underappreciated. So having a good performance against him, even in a loss, is not going to get you the shine that it necessarily should. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, let's see what happens. I'm here to watch the fight. I think it's going to be a good card. The co-main event has me super excited. Finally, after being rescheduled so many times, we have the super welterweight fight between Brian Castaño and Patrick Teixeira, which has huge implications. This is one of those fights that kind of shift where the division goes from here. Brian Castaño, technically after getting robbed against Erislandy Lara, everyone said that he won the fight. It got made a draw. Brian Castaño showed a lot of skill, a lot of talent. Good fighter coming out of Argentina. He got signed with PBC and he got signed with Al Heyman. If he wins this title, he immediately goes to fight against Jermell Charlo to unify the belts. If Jermell unifies the belt, then they're going to do musical chairs. Spence moves up to his weight class. He moves up to Jermall's weight class, and Jermall moves to 168 because they've unified the belts.
Mm-hmm.
If Patrick Teixeira wins, none of that happens. The game changes. Teixeira takes the title to ESPN. This is where we have Berlanga, and the first guy who gets the title shot if he takes it to ESPN is the winner of Dennis Hogan versus Tim Tszyu, which is probably going to be Tim Tszyu. So we create a whole nother ecosystem of super welterweights in a whole different channel.
Man, that seems like it's very interesting politically. Yes. Who's going to go where and what's going to get got. There's some intrigue there. Problem is that's tough to sell. That's tough to go to the public and say, here's what's going to happen and explain all these political moves, right? People for the most part don't. That doesn't get a lot of pussies wet in general.
The fight itself is going to be great. I mean,
it's going to be a great fight. That's what I was going to say. This is an action fight. These are two motherfuckers. These are two guys who are going to go out there and they're going to bang Jesse. They're going to give it to each other. They're going to bang each other out there. It's going to be beautiful. And we're going to watch it. And we're going to love it. We're going to love it. We're going to love it.
Okay, given what I've told you politically, who would you want to win this fight? Who do you think is better for boxing to win this match?
I want to see unified champions. Give me the unification fights. So give me homeboy Castaño.
I want to see the new blood get a shot because I see a lot of old blood over at PBC, a lot of dudes in their 30s, a lot of dudes who are either in their prime or past their prime, like Erislandy Lara. I want to see these guys, these new young guys, get a belt that they can fight for. So I want to see Teixeira go. I want to see him fight all these young guys, see the next generation rise, and then later see what happens. Maybe we get like a big super fight between these two different worlds.
Man, I feel like this is too early for Tim Tszyu to have a title shot, though, for beating fucking Dennis Hogan. Really? We're giving a title shot for beating fucking Dennis Hogan?
I mean, he looked good against Munguia.
Okay, he looked good. He looked fine, but that's not a win, and he got fucking stopped.
No, he got stopped against Jermall. That's who embarrassed.
That's who he got stopped against. Yeah, it just seems weird to me. I don't know that Dennis Hogan would be my measuring stick for a title shot. It seems unusual, is all I'm saying. It seems unusual that a guy could have one fight that people have heard of. He goes, he fights Denny Hogan. Cool enough. You know, it's a fine win. But he's a journeyman. He's more of a gatekeeper. He gets you into the title eliminator conversation. Is kind of where Dennis Hogan's place in the division to me is. Not he's in the title eliminator, right? He's one fight outside of that. He's that level before that. It's like I'm facing somebody on Tyson's Punch-Out on the wrong level. There's a glitch in the game.
Yeah.
And even Berlanga. Who the fuck is Berlanga fought? They're fighting him fucking, bellhops for Edgar Berlanga to knock out in the first round. That's not true. He's actually fought some guys that are reasonably tough to at least knock out, it seems. But no names. And now we're gonna call him a world champion?
Well, I mean, let's not say they're all just going to beat Teixeira, though. I mean, Teixeira is a credible champion. I wouldn't say he's the best guy in the division, but he's a credible champion. But if you can beat Teixeira, if you're Berlanga and you beat Teixeira, I'm calling you the champ.
That's fair. There's something to that. But I don't know. To me, it just seems like that division's still a little immature. Yeah. Maybe a title will mature it, but I still feel like it needs a little spice.
And the crown jewel of the weekend, now now that we talked about the boxing, the crown jewel of the weekend, the fight that we're all here to see, the one that I am super excited for this one. Good friends, training partners from the exact same gym. We have Gilbert Burns. Formerly. You know, their children played with each other. They were friends. They went to each other's parties. They're so close, but now they're fighting against each other because they both want to be the world champion. They both want to be number one in the division. I'm talking about Gilbert Burns versus Kamaru Usman. Amazing. Big star-studded fight. How do you see this?
It is a star-studded fight. It is anchoring this card hard because there's 100%. Not a lot.
There's nothing at the bottom.
There's nothing at the bottom. This is a top-heavy one. And even this one, if we're being honest, Burns' last fight against Woodley, not the most exciting necessarily. It was interesting and very technical, but it didn't have the flash. And Kamaru Usman's last fight was pretty widely criticized as being pretty boring. And his Woodley fight criticized the same way. So Usman, even though I think he's technically brilliant and his fighting style is brilliant, his strategy is brilliant, literally. And I think he's already in the conversation for a top 5 welterweight of all time. Undefeated in the UFC. He's got 1 loss in his professional record. The cage work is beautiful. The striking has been good. I want to see if it's improved under Whitman. It probably has. He's bringing so much to the table. Gilbert Burns, world champion in jiu-jitsu. One of the best in jiu-jitsu, in MMA certainly, but even just in regular jiu-jitsu, one of the toughest motherfuckers. His wrestling's actually really good. Unlike a lot of jiu-jitsu guys who transfer into MMA who really can't get the fight to the ground as well, Gilbert Burns has elite level wrestling for this division. I don't expect as good as Usman, but still very good. And his striking has come a long, long way. And now that's how he beat Woodley, and it looked fantastic, and he's been sparking people. Here's the crazy thing about this fight, Jay, and you're going to know exactly what I mean. They both already know who's probably going to win, right?
Yeah.
They've trained together so much. A lot of that time, Burns was at 155 for what it's worth. So they it's not like they the whole time were thinking I will definitely have to fight him at some point, right? There's probably a little, some questioning around there. Which is interesting because that means they were probably, really pulling out the stops, pulling out their tricks. Both these guys from the room know who should be in charge when the cage door closes. And we're going to find out pretty early on into the fight who that is, I feel like. That pattern's going to reestablish itself by the end of the first or second round, for sure.
Now, you shared something with me earlier in the week. You're not sold on Burns being a real threat in this fight, or that we're maybe inflating his victories too much.
No, it's not even that. Also, don't put me out there on blast. He does work with my company. Now, you said that Gilbert Burns this week was very ugly. Can you elaborate on that, Joe? No, Gilbert's he's a wonderful contender, but I say if you look at his 170 run, there's a lot of those guys who are on the way out. Right. There's a lot of Damian Maia. We know he's on the way out. He said as much. I think he's got 1 fight left in him. Tyron Woodley. We didn't know if he was going to come back. He's going to fight Luque. That could be his last fight. So while Gilbert has had really impressive wins over very impressive opposition, it's not necessarily been at the toughest part of their career. Right. So I think that versus Usman, who's seeing people at the very height of their powers. He saw Colby Covington when he was on the biggest run that he may ever go on. Certainly has ever been on to this day. He saw Jorge was a different circumstance. It was 6 days notice because Gilbert, who was originally supposed to be it, got COVID. When you're the champion, you see everybody at their best, right? So I worry about that with Gilbert Burns. How far removed is he from getting head kick KO'd in 2 minutes versus Dan Hooker at 155? Yeah. Wasn't long ago, 2 years, 2.5 years. So It almost surprised me that he got the title shot, but I don't know if there's anybody else you could have given it to. And the reason is that Usman's kind of starting to close out this division. He's starting to clean this bitch out. What do you think about that? Do you think that Burns has faced the 170 contenders to get here?
He's taken the right route. He's been booked very correctly for this fight.
That's a good way to put it. That's it. He took the right route is the right way to say it.
Do we know if he is? We'll find out on Saturday. But I have to say Kamaru Usman is one of the most underrated champions, not just welterweights, which typically welterweights tend to be underrated post GSP anyway. But he's the most underrated champion, one of all time. I mean, it's crazy. His victory over Woodley, his victory over Colby. The Covington fight, I thought was going to put him over the top, and he still doesn't have that signature win. I don't know what it's going to take to get the audience behind him, but I actually don't expect pretty big pay-per-view buys on this one.
I agree. I think they're probably, are kind of factoring in, hey, we just had this Conor fight. That was a really big fucking deal. So the next one we can take it light a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, man, that really sucks for Usman because he's such a fucking murderer. I feel like they're trying to get one more fight on this card. Remember, this is the card they were trying to get Oliveira versus Chandler on in like a week's notice. No, don't do that fight in a week's notice. But anyway, they were trying to look for something else. But I agree. Usman he hasn't gotten the respect yet at 170. He needs a stoppage. He needs to not, when he's in the cage, it's not always the most exciting. It's effective, but it's not exciting. And that is going to build this. That's going to let people underrate you. Even if you're killing folks, if you're doing it in a way that's not visually pleasing, you get the reputation. You want to know a crazy piece of trivia, Jesse?
What?
Gilbert Burns can make history this weekend, obviously by winning a title, but he can make history for Brazil. If Gilbert Burns wins the title, he will be the first ever Brazilian welterweight champion. And this is the only weight class where a Brazilian has never held the gold.
Wow. That's crazy. That's insane. Okay, well, that's good. That puts a little bit more pressure on there. Speaking of first time ever, this is how unpopular Usman is. He became the first African UFC champion. No one claimed it until Israel Adesanya won the title. They were like, we got an African champion. I was like, no, you had an African champion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you've had those. It's like how Puerto Rico all the time is like, man, we need a boxing champion. We need a boxer on the pound for pound great list. And Amanda Serrano is there like, hey, right over here, number 4, pound for pound. And they're like, yeah, we need somebody who can be a world champion. She's like, multiple world champions right now. I got them.
We need a man.
Yeah, literally. Amanda Serrano about to Joanna Manor weigh in. Listen to the guys that Usman has beaten, right? Mm-hmm. Damian Maia, Rafael dos Anjos, former champion. Tyron Woodley, former champion. Colby Covington, one of the biggest fights of that year for sure, and the interim champion at the time. Jorge Masvidal, the BMF champion, if you want to call that a legitimate world championship. Man, he's clean. Leon Edwards, early in his career, which deserves a rematch probably by now. Yeah. By the way, Leon Edwards' fight with Chimaev, off again. Chimaev is still fucked up from COVID. So I don't want to book that fight again. That's Tony versus Khabib. That's cursed. We booked it 5 times. It's fallen through 5 times. Move it the fuck on.
I'm still to fight out because it was too early in his career. But I got 5 dope fights so far. I'm counting.
And that's like in a row. And he's undefeated. He's like 13-0 in the UFC at this point. He's an ultimate. You can put your hand up. He's like an ultimate fighter champion.
I thought you were going to mention Dos Anjos.
I said Dos Anjos.
Oh, you did say Dos
Anjos? I said Dos Anjos. After Damian Maia beat Dos Anjos. And he's absolutely killing people. And it's tough to see a big hole in his game, right? He's quickly building his way up. He's the first guy I've seen who I could believe would probably he's the first guy who I think might surpass GSP.
Do you think he can move up? Because he's a big dude in this weight class.
He's actually not as big as you might imagine. He's really not. He's a little shorter than you probably think. And I think he just has like naturally low body fat. He used to wrestle up at 86 kilos, which is like 185-ish pounds. Mm-hmm. But that was on a same day weigh-in, wrestling multiple matches in a day. For a day before weigh-in, he should be at 170. I don't think he's got the frame for 185, to be honest.
So you don't think he would move up and possibly be a contender at any time?
No, it's Johnny Hendricks. You know what I mean? Johnny Hendricks is a very powerful 170. But you put him up at 185.
And look
good. Have that reach? No. We have weight classes, but it's 7 pounds apart or 15 pounds apart. Holy shit. And to be 6 feet tall, that's reasonably tall. But is it, I don't know. For his style, too, I don't love it. Do you mind if I sip on this green a little bit more?
Go for it. So I guess the only other fight to really break down on this card is the Kevin Gastelum versus Ian Heinisch fight.
Why isn't this the co-main? I don't get it. Why is Macy Barber and Alexa Grasso? I believe they're both coming off losses. I know Macy is.
I'm not excited about either one of those.
Bro, Macy Barber, she's marketable. She's a Contender Series girl. She's, picked up some nice wins. A lot of her stoppages, very funny. If you go back and watch, they shouldn't have been stopped. But she's so good at selling the stoppage, like she's going to fucking beat this girl to death, that the referee has to step in. You know what I mean? Or at least they end up doing it sometimes. She fought Roxanne Modafferi over a year ago. She blows her ACL, has to get that reconstructed. She's coming off a loss. She's coming off an injury. And she's in a pay-per-view co-main event, the most high-profile fight she's ever had. I don't get it. She couldn't have less momentum, and suddenly we're giving her a co-main event here. It seems really bizarre to make this your, like we said, Ian Heinisch versus homeboy Kelvin Gastelum, fat boy Kelvin Gastelum, a much better fight. And even that might suck.
Even that might suck. I don't even know if Calvin is still a contender. He looked horrible in his last performances. And with the way he takes care of his diet, I never know are you going to make weight? Are you not going to make weight? Is the weight class a suggestion?
Because it was at 170 too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he has weight issues at 185. Like, bro, you were at 170 not that long ago. This is straight up, you're not doing the job of making weight. And it sucks because I love his coach. His coach, Rafael Cordero, is one of my favorite coaches in MMA history. One of the best. The mastermind behind Shoot the Box. The striking mastermind behind King's MMA, which has produced so many champions. MMA coach of the year so many times. Man, but, it's kind of just Kelvin. In between fights, he doesn't show up. He's not in the gym all the time. And now I think that might be starting to catch up to him as he's getting a little older. You know what I mean? Letting his weight get out of control. Has an effect on your body, right? He should almost do the Rumble thing and just say, fuck it, and go up to 205 or heavyweight, right? Yeah. Just like whatever you weigh normally, dog, just fight there, right? Just fight there. What are we doing? Having said that, he's still very skilled. He got caught in a heel hook last time against Hermanson. One that, honestly, as a jiu-jitsu guy from the outside looking in as a jiu-jitsu instructor, I don't know if he had to tap when he did. I feel like if he had just kept spinning, he probably could have gotten out. But I don't know if he understood what was happening so much. It's tough to bet on Kelvin these days. But at the same time, Ian's totally unproven at this level.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough fight. I think it's a well-booked fight. It produces a lot of questions that we want answers to. I'm excited about that fight in a way. So they're going to go head-to-head with the Castaño versus Teixeira card. So I'm going to do a lot of flipping back and forth. But when that fight's on, I'm going to be watching the UFC. So if that's the main event, if that's the JoJo Diaz versus crazy Russian guy, I'm going to tune into this fight because
Rakhimov and Diaz. I'm the MMA guy and you're the boxing guy, and I don't know how we're disagreeing on this. No, JoJo Diaz versus Rakhimov is going to be at least I'll check out the first 4 rounds to see what approach Diaz is taking. If he's crisply counterpunching
based on his last couple fights.
Say again.
Maybe I'm overrating JoJo Diaz by him being able to overcome better boxers with his pressure and style.
I think you're not rating Rakhimov like you should be. Rahimov's a fucking problem, bro. He's a fucking problem for a lot of these cats. By the way, 130 is very low-key stacked. People talk about 135. 130 is a motherfucker in boxing. Ian Heinisch, I believe he's British. He fights like a fucking violence tornado, which I love. His counter wrestling is really good. I think this fight's mainly going to happen on the feet. And it's going to come down to activity. If Kelvin can get it going, then he should have a good shot at winning. If Kelvin's activity is low like it was against Till and like it was in that early stage against Gastelum, big problem. Big problem.
Yeah, no. Looking at the card here, right? There's actually one fight that I'm wondering why it's not on the main card. Diego Lima versus Belal Muhammad. How is this not in the main card? This is a great fight.
Bro, there's fights up and down here where you can point to it and say, this is actually pretty good. Why isn't this getting more shine? Andre Ewell versus Chris Gutierrez ain't bad. Diego Lima versus Belal Muhammad, you mentioned. Rodolfo Vieira, who I love very much as a jiu-jitsu fighter, is on this card. There's a lot of great stuff. But Belal Muhammad, also the funniest MMA fighter on Twitter. It's not even a contest. This should be a really big deal fight, especially because Belal is fucking ranked. I don't know if I'm not certain off the top of my head if Macy Barber or Alexa Grasso are, but I know Belal Muhammad is, and he's ranked in the toughest division in the fucking sport right now. And we should put some respect on that name. I think this is fantastic.
I mean, the prelims are dope. I mean, this is what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to stop everything I'm doing, watch the prelims, watch the boxing, and watch the main event. I think that's a great night of fights. We should do a reaction video. Fuck it, let's do that. Let's do a reaction video. Fucking 1 o'clock in the morning.
Why are you agreeing for things for me? Why I get a say in that too? Yeah, I'm down though. Let's do it. But you got to ask next time. Don't just fucking be just the tip of me.
Anything else?
Really good fight. Diego Lima, Belal Muhammad, really good grappler, but his striking's come a long way, and really good at outworking folks. And Diego Lima, much like his brother, really good striker, good kicker, has put together a couple of wins after a little bit of a rough start in the UFC. And this is a good fight. This is a worthy fight.
Anything
I'm feeling
else?
it. I'm digging it.
Break down?
On this card, we don't need to. Jim Miller's fighting Bobby Green. That's pretty cool. That's a good fight. That's a good fight. That could be the pay-per-view co-main. That could be the co-main. And I would not disagree in the slightest. Over fucking Barber and Grasso would be one of my last picks, really. Anything else we want to break down for the week? Fuck. What about homeboy? What about this BBC Daniel Kinahan thing? Have you been paying attention to that?
No, not at all. What is that?
You don't know about this? There's a big fucking story, Jesse. BBC did a story. They did a documentary. I'll always tell you about it, bro. I'm gonna mention it this week. We're gonna talk about it next week. They do this documentary on this guy Daniel Kinahan. Daniel Kinahan's helping to finance Fury, Josh Kelly, fucking Billy Joe Saunders. He's a lot of these like Irish fighters. I'm including Fury and Saunders in Ireland because that's kind of like where they're originally from. Daniel Kinahan, who is helping bankroll all these dudes, is a notorious Irish mobster with executions and money laundering, and he's Irish mafia. And the documentary kind of goes through and, shows he's living in Abu Dhabi now, or Dubai, I think it was actually. And asking the questions of like the BBOC and all this shit about like, hey, why is this fucking mobster so involved in the sport? Because he's like at all the fights and he's using it to kind of like get back in with society and whitewash his reputation. It's interesting. You should check it out. We'll talk about it next week because I know you haven't seen it.
100%.
Yeah, this is right up your fucking alley. This you're gonna be sucking this off behind the dumpster. You're not even gonna make it to the bedroom. Holy shit!
I love documentaries. It's so good. I can't wait. I love the mob. I love boxing, and I love documentaries. Give it to me. I'm all in.
I thought you'd seen this. It's literally why I didn't bring it up. I was like, oh, but we'll talk about it on the show, of course. Yeah, we're gonna talk about it on the show. It's a really good doc. You're gonna like it a lot. And for anybody out there who's listening, you guys should watch it too. It was a good documentary by the BBC, I thought.
One more time. What is the title of the documentary?
I do not remember. Look up the BBC documentary about Daniel Kinahan, and it'll come up. It was very recent, so it shouldn't be hard to find. And they asked Billy Joe Saunders in an interview about it. We can talk about it next week, but he was like, well, yeah, but he does a lot of good too. You guys don't talk about that. It's like, yeah, because he murders folks. OJ gave back to the kids too, but you know what I mean? No, what? You guys don't talk about the times Michael Jackson wasn't sucking those kids' dicks. He was just taking them for fucking rides on his roller coaster and shit. Why don't you talk about those times? It's like, because he did.
Bill Cosby did a lot of great things too. I mean, he also did a lot of horrible things, but he did a lot of great things too. So
who is that?
Bill Cosby.
Yeah, man, Bill Cosby opened so many doors for how many black entertainers. He also opened so many panties that he shouldn't have of passed out women. Sort of
so much money to educate the education and like helping a lot of black people be able to get scholarships and X, Y, and Z. And they gave it back because of the stuff he did. They were like, we won't take the shirt anymore.
It sucks, but yeah, that was the angle that Billy Joe Saunders took on the whole thing. It is what it is. But you got to watch the documentary. We'll have a more informed opinion about it next week.
All right. Anything else? Anything you want to promote for the week?
Man,
follow me social media. Jay Rivas Comedy on Instagram and Jay Rivas on Facebook.
Twitter, Joe F Fanatics, Instagram, Moringuinho BJJ.
Peace out.